So, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced results of the Saturday, November 8th, 2025 governorship election for Anambra State.
A sweeping win for Charles Soludo of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, where he secured 422,664 votes to beat his closest rival, Nicholas Ukachukwu of the All Progressives Congress, APC, who polled 99,445 votes.
And Paul Chukwuma of the Young Progressives Party, YPP, came a distant third with 37,753 votes, while John Nwosu of African Democratic Party, ADC, polled 8,208 votes to settle for fourth place.
And George Magalu of the Labour Party and Jude Ezenwafo of the People's Democratic Party scored 10,576 and 1,401 votes to finish fifth and sixth, respectively.
In all, 16 candidates from different political parties, of course, contested for that #1 seat in Anambra State. And the election was reported to be generally peaceful, but with reports of low voter turnout and alleged vote buying.
Well, victorious Charles Soludo of ABGA, who won by a landslide in his victory speech, assured Anambra people of more impactful development programs and projects that will define his second term of 4 years. It is on this victory of Governor Charles Soludo I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, the first for the week. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I am Victor Azu. Thank you for joining us this Monday morning. We're live from Abuja, the nation's capital, and shortly we will get you the newspaper review when Chukwudi Okuli Ubaja will join us. But in the meantime, we have been joined by Midna Daniels for the early morning. All right, thank you very much for staying with us. Of course, our conversation reviews the just concluded Anambra State governorship election. And our guests are ready, so are we. But before we get going, let's bring you Timothy Yusuf with the background report.
The 2025 Anambra State governorship election saw incumbent Governor Chukwuma Soludo of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, win a landslide re-election, securing 422,664 votes and sweeping all 21 local government areas. Soludo's closest rival, Nicholas Ukachukwu of the All Progressives Congress, APC, trailed with 99,445 votes, while other candidates like Labour Party LP and PDP garnered minimal votes. Key highlights of the governorship election, according to analysts, revealed that Governor Soludo won every local government area, marking one of the most decisive elections in Anambra's history. They attributed the landslide victory to ABGA's grassroots strength and Soludo's incumbency advantage. Accredited election observers commended INEC for a transparent and peaceful election with minimal disruptions. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu congratulated Governor Soludo, citing his visionary leadership and affirming federal support. APC acknowledged defeat but may review results, while others urged unity, recognizing ABGA's dominance. Soludo's win ensures policy stability, focusing on infrastructure, education, and economic growth. ABGA's stronghold reinforces the party's dominance in Anambra State, signaling challenges for opposition parties in future contests. Let's now join our guest in the studio for further review of the 2025 Anambra State governorship election. It's Good Morning Nigeria.
So much, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report, and we have guests seated here in the studio, to break down the Anambra governorship election, how it went, and how future elections should be. We have here, seated here in the studio, is Dr. Abdulrazak Salu Ibrahim. He's from the Department of Political Science and International Relations, Nile University. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
And also here in the studio is Victoria Etamesi, Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, and we have also been joined this time via Zoom from Oka by Faith Nwadishi, who is Executive Director at the Center for Transparency Advocacy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And not far from Faith is Professor Victor Adetula, Chair of the CDD Election Analysis Center. Thank you very much, Prof, for joining us.
Good morning.
Let's begin from the studio here, and let me get to Victoria Tamesi. Now, the election in Anambra was generally adjudged to have been peaceful, yet there was low voter turnout. Why do you think this persists in spite of improved security, improved logistics?
I think we should take it in context. The last election recorded 10.7%. The last governorship election in Anambra was 10.7%. And now we have recorded 21.3%. So I think we've made progress. So let's
from poorer to poor.
There's progress. So let's take it from there. And looking at it generally, there are some. It's a step-by-step thing. For now, there are still other factors that we still have to work on to ensure that we have increased number of participation. But the issue is we have broken that jinx of crossing. I think the governor himself mentioned that crossing that boundary of 20%. I think they hadn't had that before in the state. So the fact that we've been able to double what we had in 2021, I think it's a good start. It's work in progress.
It's work in progress, and the elections has also been described as a test of strength, for institutions like INEC, and how federal influence, party structures, and personalities interplay in this election. What is your assessment of the whole election itself, from the INEC perspective?
Yeah, from our standpoint, I think we had a lot of positives. Opening, for instance, even civil society observers, they gave us a pass mark. I think I saw somewhere where we were scored 85% as per polling units that deployed before at 8:30, that opened at 8:30. And in all, I think most polling units opened before 10 o'clock. So for that, I think we did well. With regards to logistics, was still a slight problem with regards to movement of men and materials, but generally it was a deviation from what we had been experiencing, suffering in the past. The Honorable Chairman was worried before this election, and during the stakeholders meeting, which was held in Oka last week, he enjoined the transport owners and unions to please not be the weak link in the whole chain of activities, and they held on to their promise. They were paid ahead of time, and he said there would be accountability. So I think they did better, even though there were still a few complaints here and there. And some people actually also called the attention to the fact that the huge number of security personnel that were deployed may have added or affected the movement of men and material. So you're making provision. We had 24,000 ad hoc personnel, and we're told we had 55,000 security personnel. And ad hoc personnel cannot move without the protection of the security personnel. So if you followed the reports on Saturday, there were a few polling units where we had INEC personnel on ground, but the security wasn't there. So those were a few things, but generally I think there was improvement. A lot of accolades has come our way with regard to IREV. IREV report on IREV was that by 7 p.m. we already were recording 98% of upload of results onto the website.
We'll check that with our guests in Oka.
Let's bring in Professor Victor Adetula. He's the chair CDD Election Analysis Center. And the briefing from your CDD West Africa describes the election as a barometer of party fortunes, federal might, and personality. What does that suggest?
The title of that report captures the key indicators that we use in evaluating the entire electoral environment, both before and after the election. And of course, the outcome of the election has proved us right largely. Today, the outcome has been variously described either as decisive or landslide, and it's time to move on to governance. But one point that we keep pointing out is that there is an intrinsic relationship between election in terms of process and outcome and governance itself. So there's a direct relationship. We've identified that likely there has been voter apathy. We predicted that that will happen, and it happened actually. And for us, despite the stepping up of security, the people still stay behind because of lack of competitiveness, or people are generally not satisfied with governance. And they may have decided that, was it worth taking the risk, coming out to do what? That is briefly what our pre-election reports and even subsequent reports suggest.
Thank you very much, Prof. Let me quickly get to Faith Nwadishi, who is also in Oka. Now, your organization also monitored the election. What's your immediate reaction to the results and indeed the processes leading to the announcement of the results?
Thank you very much, and good morning again to everyone that is listening. The election, the results from the election didn't come to us as a surprise, because prior to the election, we had looked at the environment before the election, and we noted that the environment was not as tense as the last election, and that could also lead to more people coming out to vote. Actually, one of our conferences, we predicted that we are going to have just a little above 20%, like that's 100% of the people that came out at the last election. But also, having looked at that, we looked at the issue of security on election day, and have always said that Anambra elections are always very peaceful on election day. Between the hours of 8:30 to 2:30, you hardly have incidences of violence, but unfortunately, we had some incidents of violence in the Ihiala local government area at the headquarters, where one of my observers was observing. There was an issue with security agents, and she was injured. Her foot was injured. And then we had the report of the young councillor that was also killed during the elections. But aside that, there were no incidents of violence. The people were quite peaceful. Anambra people are always very peaceful when it comes to election. But then the area of logistics, the total number of polling units where we sent observers, about 65% of those polling units didn't open till about 9:30, 10, and the INEC officials didn't come on time. Some arrived by 8:30, some arrived by 9, and when we asked them why they didn't come on time, they said they had issues of vehicle. And so the whole question now rests on the vendors that support INEC during election. Something has to be done about that, and the role of the electoral officers majorly. Because electoral officers are mini, like I said, they are mini resident electoral commissioners in their local government areas, and when it comes to election day deployment and those kind of logistics, they are usually in charge of it. So I think INEC should review again the role of electoral officers. But generally, the election was quite peaceful, and unfortunately, again, the political class came up short in our assessment. We actually scored them 30%. Why? Because we see that they're not deliberate in investing in those areas that should bring about the kind of votes. For instance, political parties were not involved in voter education. Fine, some of them were carried out campaigns, but campaign is not voter education. They were not involved in voter education. You could see that INEC was there for voter education, civil society was there for voter education, NOA was there for voter education, but the political parties were completely absent absent during voter education. Then when you come to the monitoring or the observation of the processes, on Thursday, sensitive materials were taken from the central bank to the local government areas. 16 political parties fielded candidates. Only 7 political parties had party agents there. And there are 21 local government areas in Anambra State. So it was just one political party that had the full complement of their agents for the 21 local government areas to follow the sensitive materials to the local government. Then coming to the polling unit on election day, you were seeing a few party agents, and even where you saw those party agents, for instance, the polling unit in Unizik, where I went to Garuba Center, you have about 5 polling units in that polling center, and you had just one party agent covering the polling units when they're supposed to have 5 party agents covering each of those. And you know, the whole thing is, at the end of the day, when these things are done, you are asking questions. Politicians are going to court, you know, questioning the process, and you're asking the justification for questioning these processes when you couldn't even make the effort to ensure that you are part of the process from beginning to the end. So we still need to quickly do it. And then and finally, on the issue of vote buying and the security agents, you know, the way we define electoral crime and the way we define crimes outside the election should be harmonized, because crime is crime. Now, when you see somebody committing an electoral crime and you draw the attention of the security agents, they tell you that it is the INEC official that should come to tell them that somebody has committed an electoral crime. And my question is, the INEC official is busy administering election on election day. At what point in time will the INEC official have the time to notice that an electoral crime is happening within the vicinity where they are administering election, for them to come to you to say, and this is a crime, please come and arrest the person. So each time you go to the field and you see that happening, the security agents are not quick to address that, because they say it must be the INEC official that is bringing it. So we need to question or address that problem of the definition of crime. Election crime, is it different from crimes that are committed on daily basis?
Madam Faith, indeed, the INEC electoral officer can't be all over the place at the same time as they are concentrating on people who are voting and making sure that people vote. And now let's bring in Dr. Yes, Dr. Abdulrazak Saliu Ibrahim into this conversation, Department of Political Science. Yes, political science. Some experts like you in politics have said the ability of the incumbent, you know, to mobilize state machinery, deliver tangible benefits, and control local party structures sort of gave him a significant advantage here, which brings to question, you know, about level playing field for opposition's party. Madam Faith has, you know, itemized some areas where she felt that the opposition were not out there giving voter education to the electorate themselves. So these rising questions continues to come up during elections like this, a level playing ground for opposition parties.
Yeah, thank you for posting this question to me. The incumbency advantage is very, very important and key in the political landscape of Nigeria, because it is easy for the incumbent governor that is in power to mobilize state resources. And again, if you take a look at it critically, you notice that you have people in key positions that are widespread across all the local government. And they could give them a mandate that if you are not able to secure your area, then you lose your appointment. And from the report that we had, that a young councillor, and it's not just in Anambra election alone, we've seen that in a couple of other elections across Nigeria, where you see people that are having some position in the government trying by all means to mobilize both legally and illegal way to win their locality. So this is something that the INEC, I think they could do more in the way they mobilize, the way the state governors can mobilize all these resources and maybe the security agencies like EFCC so that they can curtail this menace, because it has been the trend, unfortunately, in the Nigerian politics, and this is shaping the act of politics and politicking. So if there will be a rejig in the political education and then monitoring and assessment, I think most political gladiators, most especially those in power, will now be able to, yes,
But in your opinion, do you think Nigerians, based on the low turnout in the Anambra election, are losing interest in the process itself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the litmus test for performance of any anybody that is in power is, you can look at their policy directions, you can look at their performance metrics, and like most incumbents across, not just in one state, you will notice the level of poverty is increasing, people are still suffering, and they don't deem it fit for them to come out and then vote in elections that will not guarantee the dividend of democracy as promised in their laudable campaigns. During the campaigns, the governors, the chairman, you see, they go to the grassroots, and after that, they put a shield between themselves. People can no longer feel their presence politically, economically, security-wise, and they feel what is the real essence of governance. Because you don't need anyone to mobilize people where there is gain that they can get. But they look at it, and then if you look at it from the previous elections, most especially in the East, their inability to trust the process affects their turn-up in election. But with some level of improvement by INEC, like the, what's it called? The electronic beavers, people can now have some level of trust. And one will not say that completely that the voter apathy is not increasing. You can see from 10 or how many percent, it has now moved to over 20%. I think that the governors or the leaders can do more by delivering the dividend of democracy, and that will motivate people to come out, because they will know that it worths them their time, their money, and their resources to come in and then vote, because this is almost a lifetime issue of 4 years before you can have a voice in governance. But when they see that this is very difficult for them to attain, it makes them to shy away from turning up.
Now, what do you make, from a political science perspective, what do you make of the poor performance of supposedly national parties like the APC and the PDP in Anambra?
Yes, poor performance, I think it's have to do with the type of money politics that most leaders are playing. You see, in other climes, in a more civilized climb, although we will say that maybe because of their age, and then some will say Nigeria is still a learning process, democracy for Nigeria. Campaigns have been monitored. But in Nigeria, your ability to measure the amount that is put into campaign is very, very difficult. And that is why you see these campaign strategies that, like, voters buying, influencing people, even with spaghetti wrappers, are so rampant. Even in the last election, there's one of the observers that said he noticed that voters were coming out from one of the beer parlors where they have been influenced. So to them, the ability to manipulate the voters and the masses is the amount of your bank account. So instead of giving to them like the dividend of democracy, they just believe just amass more wealth and then on that day and you distribute it.
Let me get back to Madam Etamesi. This has become a recurring subject, vote buying. What is INEC doing or is willing to do about it, given the fact that it has a way of denting the integrity of elections?
What can INEC do? So if you look at the composition of the Interconsultative Committee on Election Security, EFCC is a member, ICPC is a member, other security agencies are members. So everybody has a role to play. So we are focused on conducting the election, ensuring that the electoral process moves on seamlessly and freely. So at what point
you
are
can't
we
draw attention more?
that was done. We do that. An interconsultative meeting was held the week before the election, and the attention was called to that we can't spread our tentacles everywhere. Each person needs to take on their responsibility. And so EFCC was there, so we can't even arrest. It's not the function or the duty of INEC to arrest. We do not have that capacity. It is not our duty. So if there is evidence, yes, so INEC can now do the prosecution, but we are not the ones to do the arrest. So the other agencies are there to do, and we keep sensitizing and talking to the political parties, because at the end of the day, they are the ones responsible for this. But then it's a two-way thing. The current chairman says we shouldn't call it vote buying, it is vote trading, because if there is no buyer, there will be no seller. So if the people refuse to be taken advantage of, then whoever is offering the money would just be wasting his time. You asked Doctor a question about what he thought about the trend within APC and PDP. I would think more, my concern would be more with the smaller political parties. Someone has mentioned the fact that we do not have party agents. I think Madam Faith also mentioned the fact that only one or two political parties had agents across, and which is why you have issues during litigation, because you were not there. Your representatives were not there. And where they were there, at the slightest opportunity they could swing, they can be bought over. So until you have party members, your members that would volunteer to be agents in the field, then they can stand with you and for you from beginning to the end. But when you get somebody off the street, come and be my agent for 5,000, then another party tells him, shut your eyes, I'll give you 20,000, which is what they do. So even when they have evidence, they've been bought over. But then they are wearing your tag that they are your party agents.
They are for your party. And
exactly.
they are not actually members of the party.
They are not. So and until political parties deliberately recruit members for their parties who own the success and the growth of that party,
like
then we'll just be going
did.
Exactly.
Yes.
But that can be said to be the case of PDP and APC. I particularly mentioned them because these are larger parties.
PDP is a divided house. They have a crisis.
And APC?
Well, APC, I'm still trying to understand the dynamics. I'm still trying to understand. But PDP, clearly we can see where all of this came from for them.
Yes, where all of this came from for them. Let's bring in Madam Faith now. Madam Faith, how effective, was the coordination between INEC, security agencies, and also your civil society observers? We've talked about not enough voter education. Should it be the responsibility of INEC or the political parties? Because some political experts were saying that there was not really a sense, a presence of, federal might in this election, and maybe that's why there was a landslide, victory there.
I think when people say there was no presence of federal might at this election, we were getting it wrong, because the federal might already showed its hand even before the elections. And we saw people who were members of other political parties, National Assembly members who came, rooting for the incumbent, and they were not members of that party. And that's one thing we have to ask. People go out to vote for persons on a particular party platform, and 2 months, 6 months, 1 year down the line, they decamp to another party, and nobody everything will just go on with our life the way it is. And we're saying there was no, as far as they have agreed that this is where the people should go, that's where it doesn't matter if it is a party at the center that is at the local level, or it is the same party. It doesn't matter. It just depends on what the conversations were before these elections happen. And then I keep saying that it is not the responsibility, even though it is in the electoral act that INEC should conduct voter education. We have National Orientation Agency. It should also be the primary responsibility of political parties to conduct voter education, because they're the ones who benefit from these processes. If they're not conducting voter education, how are they going to mobilize voters to come out to vote for them? How are they going to mobilize voters? And then you understand, for a very long time we have been saying, if there's no willing buyer, there's no willing if there's no willing seller, there will be no willing buyer. The people are willing to sell. Let me share an experience I had on the field. I was there on the field, and one of the polling units, young men were standing by. They were refusing to go to vote. And we just had the conversation with them. Why are you folks? Hey, you're not going to vote. They said they're offering us 3,000 naira. It is not enough. We have asked them to increase the money. If they increase the money, we'll go and vote. It has come to that level. You can imagine that. Voters are now negotiating how much they will pay them before they will go to vote. There was another case, we had a supervisor, one of the political party supervisor came to the polling unit and was admonishing the party agent. They said, they told us you are giving them 2,000 naira here. We have made provision for more than 2,000. Why are you giving people only 2,000 naira? So it's that's how we are seeing what is happening. And then when it comes to this issue, and that's why I said earlier that we need to define again. Electoral crime, is it different from everyday crime that happens in our communities? That the police will now say, or the security agents will say, unless INEC official come to tell me that this is a crime, I will not do anything. We need to be able to define that very, very well, because it's mine the entire processes. So when we talk about the issue of federal might or no federal might, it doesn't matter which political party is in place. There was some time ago, I had a senator here in Delta State who decamped from then PDP to, I think it was Accord Party. And when he decamped, he came and said it was Accord according to PDP. So these are the things that we see happening. So it doesn't matter. You just, all you need is a platform. You can actually have one of those small parties platform. And once that party platform gets the blessing, whether from the federal or whatever level, definitely you will deliver that person on that. And you see every other person, just queuing up and all that. And on the issue of party agents, you see party agents with one particular party tag, but they're working for the other party tag, for the other political party because of the money that they have given there. And then finally, some issues of this security, we need to bring it out. Monies are made available for the allowances of security officers. Some security officers we met on the field said, as at that Saturday, they had not received the allowances. The only allowance they got was the 1,000 naira that INEC usually gives them for snack. Imagine giving security officer on election day 1,000 naira for snack. So you make 3,000 naira available for 3 security officers that will be posted to a polling unit. And that is the only money that security officer is having on election day. And you're saying that security officer should see somebody that is buying vote and then go and arrest the person. The person would rather go and ask for his or her own share of the money. So we need to be sure the accountability of security agents, the money that is made available for the allowances, why not give it to them? Some of them said they have not even been able to find a decent place to sleep. Some of them are sleeping on the open field. Some of them would not even have their baths before that day. Imagine that tension, and you end up giving them 1,000 naira on election day, and you expect that they will do what they're expected to do.
Thank you. Let me quickly get to Professor Victor Adetula. Now, you've listened to Faith talking about the issues, and I'm wondering, how do we begin to resolve all of this? Because Nick Dazan was here just last week, a day before the election, and he was talking about the same thing, that most times the police people tell you that they've not received the money. This money has been appropriated, it has been released and disbursed. So who holds it and how can they be held accountable? Because all of them can now be said to be compromising the integrity of the elections.
Thank you. Unfortunately, transactional politics has become a dominant feature of our electoral process at all levels, from vote buying to even officials that are involved and expected to play key dominant role. For me and for the organization I represent, CDD, we have preached and advocated that the ongoing electoral reform should target critical areas where some of these challenges has shown their ugly faces again, beginning with addressing operational capacity for INEC, then broaden the scope of engagement in such a way that the role of other related agencies that have responsibility will be clearly defined and empower. I think that will help us. One point that other colleagues have talked about is about voters' education. And not only voters' education now, but civic education in a country that is experiencing disorientation at all levels. I think we need to go back to the drawing board and emphasize civic education so that people know what to do and how to behave, and we can use that to leverage opportunity to advance transparency and accountability in our institutions and in our other structure, including the political party. Last point for me on political party, it's possible that we talk about small and big party. I think it goes beyond that. Nigerian party system has crisis, no doubt about that. Either it is Abuja, it is APC, or it is PDP. They have not demonstrated capacity to engage, even in issue-based politics or issue-based campaign. With the failure of issue-based politics, the tendency is to think about vote trading as the key strategy, and that is what we are experiencing, where it is no longer very easy to snatch ballot boxes. The tendency is to work towards buying the people's conscience, unfortunately.
Fortunately, I'm still going to say with you, some people have described the Anambra election, as a shift towards performance-based voting rather than ethnic or partisan loyalty. Because I earlier asked Madam Faith whether there was a federal presence there, and she's saying that the federal presence showed itself before the election, and it's like the federal presence just accepted that performance itself is a base for elections, in a foundation for good election in Anambra State. Let's get your views on that.
Well, what you just recited is an opinion. Yes, that it is about performance. I think either we call it federal might or federal power. One of the things that has come out clearly in the Anambra election, and which we have talked about as part of the new dynamics, is the new alignment of political forces. And I think somebody also alluded to that now. I mean, at the beginning of this, that APC congratulating Abuja receiving accolade from APC. This is not about party level alliances. This is rather political alignment and realignment in such a way that interests of the political class are protected and advanced. I think we need to get that. Whichever name we call it, either federal power came before election, we know that there is a political friendship between President Tinubu and Governor Suludu. Has this worked out in this election? The result has shown that. Another factor that we may wrongly attribute to the power and strength of Abuja I don't think so. It is identity. The political party, Abga, is a mere symbol in eastern Nigeria. The real issue is that it stands as the identity of the Igbo. Every Igbo, most Igbo identify with that, not because of how good the party programs are, but the fact that, look, this is our own identity. This is a platform with which we can leverage opportunity and resources.
Thank you, Prof. Just a reminder to our viewers that we expect your comments and questions regarding the subject. Of course, we are discussing the Anambra State governorship election just concluded between Saturday and Sunday. So keep it short, keep it simple, and let's know where you are writing in from and your name, of course. And back here in the studio, let me get to Dr. Abdul Razak. Now, what does this election tell us about our political evolution? Is the process maturing, in your opinion, or is it that we are just doing the same old patterns with improved technology?
I think that it's a learning process, and the process, there's a step that is being put in forward that people are learning, because in the past, you notice that the number of registered voters and then those that casted their ballot at times, you can see the disparity. For example, let's say we have a population of about 5 million in a state, and then the total number of votes will be more than that. But with the introduction of technology, the VBAs, voters' education, we can see a lot of improvement in it. In fact, you can leverage on the issue of this vote buying. If votes will not count, I don't think that the political parties will be ready to do away with their finance. That equally shows that the political parties are aware that votes actually counts now. So this showcases the fact that we are growing in terms of our electoral pattern, the voting pattern, and electoral practices that the INECs have been able to introduce. So away from that again, you can see the level of politicking that the leaders are now taking. They are trying to be more closer to the grassroots in terms of their electoral campaigns. We've seen in Anambra where the governor is mostly addressing the people in their local languages, trying to be more friendly with them, and all of these are political or campaign gimmicks. However, it's working and showing to the people that yes, we are actually progressing. But are we at the promised land yet? Of course, the answer is no. Can we do more? Yes. From the National Orientation Agency, and we as teachers also, it is our responsibility, which in Nile University we are doing. We are making sure that we teach our students the real act of politics and responsibility. And this should spread across all homes, because without their performance or their involvement in this civil responsibility, their voice will not count. And then you cannot hold the leaders responsible for votes that you didn't participate in. So in a remarkable way, I can say that, yes, we are making some level of progress in our political landscape.
Okay, thank you so much. Madam Victoria, we have some messages that are coming, and I think the message that just came in, so that I will read them so that you respond to them, because he has mentioned INEC in it. He said, this one came, please make your contributions as short as possible so that we don't take too much time reading it. Do not itemize it, just edit it. Keep it short and simple. Engineer Akeju Olaboju wrote in from, I don't know, he didn't put where he's writing from. He said... Abuja? Yes. Okay, there are 3 obvious lessons, among others, to learn in Anambra election. He said, 1, it is possible to seek re-election without fear or coercion to realign or defect to any party. You only need to allow your performance to speak for yourself. 2, he says it's a signal that election can be conducted and leader emerge without judiciary interfering, thereby reducing wastage of fund on litigation. And then he said that INEC, if well organized, has the capacity to conduct credible elections that will also make the losers and winners happy for their attempt and effort. And Ngene from Oka said, I'm reaffirming that voter buying don't determine election winner in Anambra State. In the just concluded Anambra election, the heaviest spenders were not the winner. What I still maintain is that INEC should remove any ballot vote shown to public. Thank you. Because we saw some people, you know, even the governor himself, yes, he was showing, you know, and all that. So what actions should be taken, because they say it is unconstitutional to do that?
Yeah, it is unconstitutional, but in our guidelines we have not, that has not been addressed or discussed where it has been decided in the guidelines that poll officials are taken through that this should constitute a rejected ballot, that I cast my vote and my choice is clear. Yes, it says secret, you thumbprint in secret, but you drop it in the public view. That the ballot paper is open to the view of others. We have not imputed that in the guidelines and regulations and the training manuals for the poll officials. It's not clearly spelled out in the Constitution that you should invalidate a vote or a ballot that has been made open. Yeah, the Constitution says secret ballot.
Well, Nigerians are asking that it should be a crime to do that.
So we'll bring up that, we'll put that discussion on the table. But for now, that was not the instruction that they had, that any ballot that is displayed should constitute a rejected ballot. What constitutes rejected ballot as at the moment in the manual for training poll officials is that where the voter's choice is not clear, then it is an invalid vote. But where the choice is clear, but because he displayed it, that's going contrary to what they have been told in the training manual.
I think the point that the person who sent the message is trying to make is that if this is stated like this in the Constitution, that look, you thumbprint in secret and only drop in the open, and somebody goes contrary to that, INEC has a responsibility.
Was it clearly stated in the Constitution that it says thumbprint in secret and drop it in the ballot box?
But that wasn't done. Thumbprinting was done in the open.
He didn't thumbprint in the open. He merely showed you the ballot. Yes, he displayed it. So we need to be clear, because the lines is difficult to interpret the law.
We need to be clear, but now that you know there's going to be some amendments in the Electoral Act.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That now it could be clearly spelled out, and then everybody understands. And probably that would be a signal, and that would guide their conduct when they know that if they display it, then they've invalidated their votes. Probably that would serve as a deterrent for them. And the chairman has always, since he assumed office, he has harped on the fact that for him it's electoral justice. And I think that is what is playing out here, where even the losers may not be as they would be happy to congratulate the winner. They will not feel that they have been unduly cheated. And so for us, we see that trend is what is playing out or has played out in Anambra. There hasn't been much of contestation, apart from the fact that, there was vote trading. But vote trading is not the making of the commission. It is the citizens themselves that have allowed themselves to
vote rigging. If rigging,
vote trading.
Okay.
Vote trading. So what lessons from the Anambra election, can guide future off-cycle and general elections? Because we have some off-cycle elections coming up in Osun and Ekiti and all that.
For us, I think I don't know if it was Madam Faith that mentioned it. The issue that civic education must be tied to voter education. So when you isolate voter education, it looks like something esoteric that some people cannot align themselves with. But when there is citizenship, and you see that your future and the future of your children is tied to the decision that you take or you make, then I think even the vote trading issue would be addressed. But for as long as people do not realize the consequences of their choices and their actions, where you think that 5,000 naira, even 20,000 naira, even 50,000 naira can sustain you for 4 years. If you think that 50,000 naira can sustain you for 4 years. So until there is that political education and consciousness, and people begin to own the process and want to ensure that their votes actually count, that they will have a role to play or a decision to make in deciding who is going to guide them in the next 4 years. I mentioned the issue of political parties, the need for them to invest in recruiting members and having an ideology, standing for something, so that on that election day, when the buyer comes, he will have nobody to sell. He will have nobody that is willing to sell their votes. So when people believe in something, but when somebody is talking about, oh, you are offering us 2,000, it should be 5,000, does that solve his or her problem? Even for that day, does that solve the problem for that day? So until we begin to own the process and believe strongly in the strength and powers of our vote, because if that vote wasn't strong or powerful, then they wouldn't be seeking to buy it from you. But they don't realize that. They don't realize that. They think, okay,
all right.
exactly. They do not realize that. So until political parties invest in that, both civic education and voter education, and not just relax and everyone is, oh, INEC didn't do sufficient voter education. That is not true. We did a lot, but it is not our sole responsibility. All others have a role to play in ensuring that citizens know their rights, know their responsibilities, and that the rightful person is voted into office.
All right, let's take some messages from this end. Ahmed Babadikwa writes in from Maiduguri, said, let this victory be a clear message. Performance beats propaganda every time. Okay, and he says the people have spoken and they have chosen proven governance over empty lies. Yes, our elections have room for improvement, but no amount of procedural imperfection can explain away a win of this magnitude. This was a verdict on performance. It's a simple, undeniable equation. You don't deliver, you don't get the votes. Okay? And from Ogunbolude, good morning, everyone. I congratulate the INEC and the winner of Anambra election of yesterday. The turnout was massive. No voter apathy at all. But the insincerity of compromised, corrupt voter registration nationally that cannot be more than 40 million and about 700,000 in Anambra State as of today. Okay? I think this person has done some counting. And then, good morning, Nigeria. Chukwuneme Ifezwe from Ojo in Lagos says, I want to commend the INEC for the success of the election. Also, the security agencies should help reduce the incidence of money transactions on election ground. And from Fatai Badamosi, chatting from Lagos, the Anambra elections have come and gone. I observed a remarkable improvement by INEC, but the political parties still need to change their ways. All parties bought votes, and the highest bidder carried the day. The security agencies are yet to come to the party. Unfortunately, it is the ordinary people, poor people of Anambra, that are the ultimate losers because their votes have been bought and sold and their destinies mortgaged for another 4 years. All right, we have some time. Okay, director says we should go on break, so we take a break. When we return, we get back to Oka. Please don't go away. All right, thank you very much for staying with us. Of course, this is Good Morning Nigeria, and if you've just tuned in, we are discussing the Anambra State governorship election held between Saturday and Sunday. Now, let me get to Oka, where we have Faith Nwadishi. Now, you've always talked about, and many people do too, talking about inclusion. So I ask, how did women and persons with disabilities fare in Anambra election of Saturday?
So for the areas where we observed, we saw that the INEC officials actually give them priority, not just the persons with disability, nursing mothers, older people. There was one particular unit, I was there personally. A visually impaired person came, but he didn't see his name on the register, so he couldn't vote. Perhaps he is one of those that is supposed to have moved to a new polling unit, or they took his name to a new polling unit. But for that particular polling unit where he came to, his name was not on the register, so he couldn't vote. And again, I think that even the voters themselves now understand that their priority should be given to persons with disability, older persons. As soon as they approach the polling unit, you see people trying to help them. You see people trying to help them look for their names and other things. So we scored them very highly, that those areas were particularly taken care of. But what we found again was that in some of those areas where they were supposed to have, some people didn't know that it is not in all of the polling units that you have assistive devices. So people were going to ask for, braille ballot, where is this? But on the voters register, you didn't have any visually impaired person. So there was no need to have a braille ballot in that polling unit. But people were asking, INEC, you are supposed to have, you say you will have. So there's also that fact that people don't have all of those information to do that. But when it comes to assist working with persons with disability, I think that they had a fair treatment.
Okay, Faith. We'll return to Prof now. He's still there in Oka. Well, Faith will come back to finish her submission. Now, let's talk about reforms and innovation, that are needed to enhance credibility, and transparency in election. What do you think INEC should do? Because you're talking about the Braille for blind people. And one other question I need to ask you, I'm very passionate about women in politics, and there were like 2 women on the ballot and one as a going for deputy governor on the particular part. 6 women?
Deputy.
Yeah, deputy. We had 3 women. How, I heard one of them complaining on Saturday that they said they were not going to vote for her because, there were some certain terms they used, which I don't want to use on national television. How are opportunities for women, in politics, being advocated and being protected, because it's like they were just practically not there at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, despite all the advocacy about increasing and scaling up women participation, it has not giving us the desired result. And the case of Anambra, it's not different from what we have seen elsewhere. But the case of Anambra in particular, we see the misuse of cultural resources, language that borders on hate speech, targeted disinformation that are targeted at the women folks to make them feel low and incapable. I mean, both at the party level and even during election. And this is a part of the shortcomings that one observed in the Anambra election. I mean, the worst is the way people have used language, hate speech against women. That's talking about inclusion. And with respect to elderly, I think like Madam Faith observed, there have been some improvement, but the other side of the flip is where people intentionally, use the opportunity of the aged, not knowing what to do, possibly because of not doing voters' education in their local language, now stand in to vote on behalf of the agent. I think some of these practice or such practice can be reduced. Instances of such can be reduced by scaling up voters' education and INEC communicating guidelines in local language and even in demonstration that people of different social category can understand. And going back to the reform, I think the reform that we suggest, or part of this is already ongoing, are areas such as the election-related crimes and offenses need to be addressed beyond what we have presently. If this is addressed and other issue of operational capacity is addressed, I think we can take some of this lesson, use them in some of the obstacle election, and the big 2027 election will record some improvement.
Thank you very much, Prof. And back here in the studio, let me get to Dr. Abdul Razak. Now, given the amount of intervention that we have seen from the courts from other elections that we have had, how confident can we be that this particular election will not also get to be decided by the courts rather than by the ballot boxes?
Yes, I think this election is starting on a good footing with the congratulatory messages from the opposition parties that lost in this election.
From the opposition parties?
Yes.
APC not inclusive, right?
Yes. However, the Nigerian syndrome that every political party that contested election wants to be the winner. But if you look at it from the historical lane, you will notice that even Professor Solodo, in this not his first attempt, he has had some setbacks. So I think the opposition parties should take it in good faith and then not waste much of their time and resources in calling for litigation over this. But one need to emphasize that the only way to seek redress in the Nigerian constitution is to go to court. So the institution of the judiciary still remain very paramount in this regard, because you cannot put the law into your hand, and then the ability to get justice, which they are supposed to bring in some of the evidences. But unfortunately, among the political parties that contested, there are those that even their what's they call were not on ground. Their agents were not on ground to validate and then give credence to what is happening in election day. So having said that, if you look through all this journey, you will notice that it's important for the judiciary to come in so that they can make in pronouncement as at when people have grievances. And their pronouncement, of course, will be taken seriously.
Okay, thank you. We have some messages that came in. Let me read some. Okay. And please, we've always said you should keep it short and simple. Please don't be giving us 2 pages a contribution. And from Abiola Peter Ota from Ogun State, he said, Professor Soludo is an economist and performer. The election results have actually demonstrated that. And Dennis Shima is a political analyst here in Abuja. He said, as part of INEC reform, INEC accredited local and international observers' reports of electoral crimes should be legally binding on offenders irrespective of political parties. As such, evidence of electoral crimes by political parties, agents and stakeholders as reported by INEC accredited observers should be used in court against offenders by INEC. And he said security officers' allowances should be given to ad hoc security personnel directly at INEC electoral officers' office at local government headquarters instead of giving through their senior officers who sometimes withhold junior officers' allowances. That's Dennis Chima. And another one said, vote buying is not necessarily the absence of voter education or civic education. It's rather a deviant attitude that stems from poverty and widespread discontent on the entire system. Dr. Chubu K. He wrote in from Oka. Another one said, my humble opinion is that we need to sensitize the voters on what it means to vote right, and again to have a kind of attitudinal change in our mindset. And again, the society and the citizens need to understand that voting is not a question of trying to get money from the politicians. The major problem is our electoral system is monetization, and it's a major concern, and the solution is the need to educating people to vote their conscience instead of selling their vote to politicians. Madam Victoria.
Okay, let me start with the issue of the stipend for the security officers, the security personnel. INEC doesn't pay that. It's the organizations that pay them. So INEC merely just complements or provides that stipend, that support to aid them have something to eat while they're on duty. So that's what the
Who
3,000.
provides the one that they are paid from, or that they are supposed to be paid from?
It goes to the police. It goes to their agencies.
But it's a special
yes.
amount for that purpose.
Yes. So
But
their organizations should pay them.
People are complaining that the 1,000 is not enough that INEC gives.
It's not even a part of it. It's just have something to buy your gala and your coke while you're on duty. That's basically what it's meant for. Okay. So it's not part of the main stipend that they should be given. Yeah, it's just INEC supporting them to have something to eat while on duty.
Okay.
All right, I have two messages here. This one is from Olabisi Omolona,
okay,
a CSO from Akure in Ondo State, said, I give kudos to INEC for making the election results to be out promptly and 97% projected within a short test time. INEC should make it mandatory for political parties to engage professionals in the field to conduct voter education. Only INEC conducted voter education. It should also be the duty of the political parties. Security agents must properly take care of, like what Faith has said. If they are taking care of it, it will be difficult to buy them over. I'm not sure I understand the last paragraph here. And then this one reads, Good morning, Nigeria. I am Clifford Okwoma, reaching NTA from Cotonou, Benin Republic. I followed the election process through the media, and I was so impressed, unlike other elections we've had in the past. I don't really believe in vote transaction, because in 2023, I collected money from a political party and I voted for another party. Who knows where I cast my vote? All right.
That's Madam Faith is back.
Perhaps she can react to some of these and round off her comments.
Yes, round off your comments because it's not really on our side now. Madam Faith, can you respond to some of them?
I'm sure I missed some. It's one of the issues we're talking about, energy crisis that we have in the country. Well, the issue of civic education, voter education, and all of that, I think that INEC should also monitor the political parties when they train their party agents. Like civil society, we deploy observers. We ensure that we train our observers. We develop checklists for them and all of that. But you don't see political parties training their party agents. So it is because party agents don't have this training, they don't understand. For instance, in the guidelines, it is the INEC official, the polling unit officer, that should assist people to vote who cannot vote. But you go to the polling unit and you see the party agents. The police, they know that this is party agent. Their dog staff also know that this is party agent. One person assisting 10 persons. If there are 10 old persons, you see the person coming, so he's my mother or he's my father. So one person is having 10 fathers or 10 mothers, and the person is assisting to vote. We have to do that. And then also this idea that Nigerians keep saying, that votes are not counting. And I keep saying for every election, every time you go for one election, if they paid 1,000 in the last election, the next election they will make it 100%, or they will take it up to 1,000%. People are saying votes are not counting, and politicians are investing money in buying people's votes. So how do you invest in something that does not give you return on investment? And that is one of the misinformation that the political class is giving to people to keep people at home so that they will not come out to vote. We need to make people understand, Nigerians understand, that because votes are counting, that's why the votes are becoming expensive. It's just that the citizens don't understand that with the PVC in their hands, they have become the CEOs of every electoral process. The power to hire and fire is in that PVC. So somebody is buying it for 1,000. There was one election that we saw 1 cup of gari, 2 cubes of sugar, and 15 naira granite inside, and there was somebody's face on that, and people were queuing up to get that. In the FCT, I saw people collecting pure water and cabin biscuits just for them to vote for somebody. And that power, the power to hire and fire, people are selling it off for peanuts. We need to to change that orientation so that people will understand that the power to put anybody in office or take anybody out from office belongs to them. So, but most importantly, I don't know what we have to do with the politicians and the political class. Who are the beneficiaries, outright beneficiaries of what we are doing? No training for your party agents, no party agent on the field. An election is conducted, you must go to court. People are saying, let's hope that nobody goes to court, but it has become a tradition. In fact, if you don't go to court, having contested an election in Nigeria, your supporters will say that you are weak. Don't be surprised that some still will go to court for this election. So the decision of who wins an election has been taken over to the judiciary. It is no longer INEC. INEC will declare result, but the judiciary that decides who is the final winner of an election, even though the people had done that. And then just finally, let me also say, this issue of having voted for people, we must look at it in our electoral act. Now that the reform is going on, the debate is going on, that candidates, electorates will come to vote for you based on what you have sold to them in your manifesto during your campaign. And some of those things you have sold to them is based on the platform on which you are running. Then sometime along the line, 1 year after they have given you that mandate, imagine, look at the 2023 election. We all celebrated it as one election that brought diverse people at the National Assembly. But what are we seeing today? Those people that have been voted for on other political parties, they have decamped. So what we are looking at is this issue of political alignment. Are they aligning based on that ideology, or they are aligning based on their own personal ideology and interests, rather than the people back from their different constituencies that voted them? So please, let us as Nigerians know that our votes are counting as of today. Our votes do count. And that is why there's so much investment in the area of vote trading, buying our votes. If we don't sell, they will not buy. Don't sell your vote. Ensure that you vote for the right person, that your conscience, so that when the person decomes, you can actually do a referendum.
Okay, thank you, Madam Faith. Thank you, Madam Faith. Then we need to go to another guest for for them to round up. Let's bring in Professor Victor. Professor Victor, what broader lessons, should the political class take from this election, especially with 2027 in view and other off-cycle elections that are coming up, later on?
All right, let's get back to this.
You can respond to that. What
Yes.
broader lessons should the political class take from this Anambra election? Faith Nwadishi has itemized some pertinent issues there. So let's get your opinion with view of other off-cycle elections and 2027 in view now.
Yes, I think all political parties can leverage on the outcome of this election and know that performance could actually determine your success in election. Again, they can equally look at the fact that setbacks now, this present setback should not just be taken as hook, line, and sinker as issue that will affect them in the next election, because Professor Soludo have equally faced some setback in the previous, I think in 2 or how many elections. But now he is the incumbent, and then he has equally won the second term in office. So they can use this as a yardstick for measuring their strategies and their campaign strategies, how to reach out to people, how to bring in more campaign issues that will be in line with the people's interests, rather than just...
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Let me finally get to INEC. Now, looking ahead to other off-cycle elections, what has INEC picked up from Anambra that could strengthen the confidence of the electorate and participation?
So it was mentioned, the speed with which the result was announced. That's a positive. Would improve on that. If we're able to announce results on the day of election, that would be perfect. And then the issue of poll officials. We had 1 or 2 incidences in spite of all that was done. Okay. So you train poll officials, and at the last minute, 1 or 2 of them opt out, and so they just disorient you. So we're just hoping that we'll perfect on that, and that those that are trained would actually do the job, and we're not now having to do replacements, last minute replacements, because we saw there was an incident in Ihiala that was all trending all over social media, and that was because the poll official that was assigned to that polling unit absconded at the last minute. Yes. So for us, we'll just improve on our processes and make things better and more seamless on election day.
Let's get to Prof. I understand we have Prof back. Prof, your final comments, please.
Well, it's very simple that there are quite a lot of lessons to be learned from the Anambra election. Our political class have to take things seriously, because deceiving the electorate cannot last forever. With an appeal to civic education, I think we can do something about something better about electoral behavior. And when people get it right, they will challenge the political elites, and that may not be too good for them.
Thank you so much, Professor Victor Adetola, Chair, CDD Election Analysis Center. We appreciate you for your contribution to the conversation. And Madam Faith Nwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency and Advocacy. As always, it's a pleasure having you as a discussant on the program. I'm back here in the studio, Dr. Abdul Razak Saliu Ibrahim, Department of Political Science and International Relations, Nile University. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. And Mrs. Victor Etta Messi, Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you again.
Same here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And on that note, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you so much for watching. On behalf of the crew, I am Juma Yusuf.
And I'm Victor Azu. Don't miss tomorrow's edition. It promises to be better than today. See you again.